And good evening. I'm Jeff Kulikowski. Christie is off tonight. It has certainly been a busy first few weeks for the new administration, and maybe even busier for members of Congress since early January when the new session began. Joining me now, freshman congressman and this area's representative, John Mannion. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jeff.
Let's start with a kind of a real broad one. I'm sure orientation and just being in D.C. right after the election, that's a lot to take in. But what has it been like being a member of Congress since January 20th when the new administration came in? A whole new level of busy? Absolutely, absolutely. You know, listen, I have lived here my whole life. I ran for office and ran for this seat to make sure that I was a good reflection of New York 22, that I delivered for the people here, that we help people. I think that's why a lot of people get into government. But what we've seen over the course of these past few weeks is something that Central New Yorkers know. They know right from wrong, and what we're watching is wrong. It is. Are there a couple of, I mean, there are a couple, we'll get into a few of the specifics because there's a lot of really Central New York centric issues, but is there a couple of overall themes that are really concerning to you right now? Well, the number one thing is centralizing the power around the executive branch. You know, for 248 years, our Constitution has made sure that there are checks and balances, and I ran to work with everybody, work with each party, work with the president, I said, after he was elected, to make sure that we do all of those things. I put my hand on the Bible and swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, and what we're seeing is a massive overreach in a number of different ways of a centralization of power in the executive office. And then I also have great concerns about some of the nominees that were approved and went through the constitutional process, but I'm fearful that, you know, they may not have the ethics or the background to do an effective job, and I'm worried more along those lines of them being more loyal to the president versus the job at hand. Which gives you, I mean, I guess the job of trying to keep some checks and balances on them. Do you have much leeway on that? Well, listen, we've been active. My team's been great all along. What we have to do is elevate the message, first of all. When there is a violation of the Constitution, and there have been repeated ones, you got to let people know it. Also, there's multiple pieces of litigation that are out there, which have served on a check almost unanimously. They have found that the president has had overreach, and I'm a co-sponsor of multiple pieces of legislation, including the Taxpayer Data Protection Act, as there's many individuals that are very concerned about individuals that have not passed background checks or been approved in our system, worried about the national security and their own personal information. Yeah, well, I think we'll get to that one. I think I know where you're going, but I want to tackle this one because very Central New York centric. It appears the Trump administration is looking at renegotiating deals made under the Chips and Science Act, which is kind of one of the main drivers of landing Micron here. Are you aware of any kind of attempt to rework, rewrite any contract with Micron for Central New York? I'm not aware of any attempt, and I want to say that for the good of our national security, we really need to onshore semiconductor chip manufacturing in this country. Central New York has positioned it so well, and so many individuals work very hard at all levels of government, Republican and Democrat, work together to make sure that this project is going to come to its full fruition. So it has been negotiated. It has gone through the bipartisan negotiation process. It is signed into law. So I know that Micron is committed to it. I am, and other stakeholders in the region, leaders in the region, are supportive of this continuing moving forward in the way that it's already been vetted. So best of your knowledge, no attempts right now to try to rewrite any of that. That's correct, but it's certainly front of mind. Okay. Obviously, we know you were a teacher. You had a long stay in education. Your thoughts on this move to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education? Like, what does that mean for us here in Central New York? What kind of impact might that have? Well, education is the great equalizer, and we love our schools here in Central New York. I've seen it as a parent. I've seen it as a teacher. I've seen it as a community member. It's really the core of our communities. And what could happen with the dismantling of the Department of Education, which I reject, I oppose that, is that the protections that are in place in law and through funding for our students that have an IEP, students with a disability, those protections
protections are there and the funding is there. You know, we dismantled the Department of Education. I'm very concerned, not just about those students. I'm concerned about, you know, smaller class sizes not being the case. Cuts to arts and music, all of that is really very concerning, and we should all be concerned. Certainly my office has heard that concern.
Yeah, I'm going to try to cover as many topics as possible. I'm going to circle back to something I think you were kind of hinting at earlier. We're talking about the Department of Government Efficiency and DOGE, getting into some real sensitive areas, and also just kind of, it seems, blindly cutting jobs and slashing departments and functions and things like that. What's your level of concern with what's happening with DOGE right
I'm
now?
very concerned. I'm very concerned. You know, if you told me 10 years ago that the wealthiest person in the world, without any background checks, which does dealings with the U.S. government and China, is controlling our payment systems and investigating people's, you know, sensitive information, I would think we were talking about a science fiction movie. So I'm very concerned about it. That's why I signed on to that piece of legislation. What this administration has done is removed 17 inspector generals that do that auditing, that are referees independent of any partisanship, and they're there to do that, and they do conduct audits. These are you know, a breach of people's privacy. Individuals have not gone through a background check. And if we are trying to be more efficient in government, which is I absolutely support, this is not the way. Let's uphold the Constitution, do it the right way, and people are very concerned, and justifiably so, as a result of these actions that that are an infringement on people's privacy.
And we're already starting to see the impact of some of these slashing of programs and funding. Catholic Charities, for instance, this week announcing they're going to have to cut 51 positions because of lack of funding to the refugee resettlement program. So we're already starting to feel this. Can that kind of stuff be reversed quickly enough to still be impactful?
Well, this is right back to square one, which is when that memo came out and the executive orders came out saying that this appropriated funding is not coming, just that side of it. Congress is the one that appropriates these dollars. The previous Congress, and a Republican majority in the House, voted for this. So these dollars have to be appropriated. The impact is already happening with the sweeping cuts to government agencies that in many ways have no rhyme or reason, are impacting lives right here in Central New York. People need answers from the IRS. We've had cuts there, cuts to the Veterans Administration, which is already a challenge when it comes to staffing. So this is cruel. It's un-American. It's not how we operate, and it's putting people in a lot of pain. So we are elevating that cause, and I'm hopeful that my Republican colleagues, and I don't tend to be super partisan, but we need their help. They're in the majority, and it's hurting their constituents all over this country.
I probably have time to get to maybe one more topic here. The impact on foreign relations. We've seen a strain, obviously, with Ukraine now. How impactful is that, our standing, our relationships with countries around the world, including one right to our north in Canada? So it's literally global almost.
Listen, we're supposed to be the good guys. And I don't think that our standing now in the world is better than it was just a month ago. To say that the war was started by Ukraine, first of all, is a blatant lie. It hurts our credibility around the world. We have to continue to support Ukraine. The European nations have supported them as well with lots of funding, in fact, more funding than us. That's why misinformation is very dangerous. Do we all have a stake in NATO? Yes. Should those European countries pay more? Yes. But it's our alliances which have provided our strength and stability in avoiding a world war around the world that's necessary. And as far as our, you know, we all know people who are from a Canadian background or Canadian citizens. This is the largest peaceful border over the longest period of time, probably in the history of the world. And they're our friends, and we need to support each other. It is our unity and our alliances that have kept this country as strong as it is and kept the world in as safe and as peaceful of a place as it has.
Congressman, you're a busy guy. I appreciate you spending a few minutes with us. Great conversation. You're welcome back anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it.